Revenge is supposed to bring closure, but it only left me hollow. I confronted him, saw the fear in his eyes, but it didn't satisfy the gnawing void inside me. The betrayal had carved a wound so deep, nothing could heal it, not the confrontation, not the shattered remnants of our life together. As I looked at him, I realized the true battle wasn't with him or even with her. It was with the part of me that still cared, the part that was slowly unraveling, just like everything else. Sal took a quick shower, then wrapped a towel around his waist. He downloaded a picture he had taken of Lucienne, along with a document from Ding. He saved them on a memory stick. After getting dressed, he hurried down to reception. He found Mr. Jacobs and managed to convince him to print the picture for him. He believed in acting fast. If you need to do something, do it right away. While he waited for the picture to print, and Mr. Jacobs was distracted, he downloaded the document. After thanking Mr. Jacobs, he took the picture and stepped outside. He looked over at the restaurant and, as he expected, saw Lucienne with a group of people enjoying their meal. She had changed her outfit quickly and was animatedly talking with them. He was too far away to hear their conversation, but he could see her there. He went back to his room and turned on his laptop. While it started up, he texted Ding to let him know his package had arrived so Ding could continue with his part. He wanted to see the recording his laptop had made. He had set it to start when it heard sound. It was a bit of a risk, but sometimes it worked out. He clicked on the recording. It was pretty long. It began by capturing soft sounds in the room. It wasn't loud, but Sal smiled as he listened. Then it cut off and started again, picking up more movement. Later in the day, he could tell from the sunlight in the room that time had passed. He saw Sarah and slowed the playback, hoping for the best. She was talking to someone who wasn't visible. Sal guessed it was Alice. You have choices. You can relax and enjoy your vacation, then deal with things when you return. That way nothing changes and he's unaware. You get what you want. Alice's response was low, and despite trying to raise the volume, he couldn't catch what she said. Then tell him. I think he's misunderstood things. If you explain clearly, I believe he will understand. As Sarah moved around the room, Sal missed the next part until Alice walked in holding a dress. It's a risk. I do care for him. He's a good husband and a good person. I feel guilty. I haven't been treating him well, and he knows it. He's not clueless. I think he feels something is off. Alice sat down on the edge of the bed. You've kept your two lives apart for a while, and it's been difficult for you. Just be honest. Reuben understands what's going on. I have other partners, and he's accepted that arrangement. He knows about sharing me with others. Sal is not Reuben. No, but you've put him in a situation where he feels limited. He cares about you, so slowly talk about your connections with others. Be gentle with it. Over time, he might get used to the idea. Alice gave a light laugh. I don't think that's a good idea. You saw how upset he was last night. I haven't seen him this angry in our whole marriage. We're always there for each other. After the group event, make sure to be nice to him. Show him he matters. If he sticks around after hearing our plans, he might feel overwhelmed. Frame it as a chance for him. This could help him enjoy the resort and experiences he might have missed. Yes, but he wants to be with me. I know he's very caring. Just think about it. Imagine having a partner for 10 years who still chooses to be with you. Please stop, Sarah. I feel bad about all this. It was silly to think we could make it work. He's upset, and I don't want to risk our relationship. I love him. Spend some time tonight showing your appreciation. He might not be able to do much, but he can still express his feelings in other ways. He's made it clear he won't connect with me while he feels limited. That's his decision. Sarah chuckled softly. That's his decision? Oh my, he really doesn't see the whole picture, does he? Alice wrapped her dress around herself. No, he doesn't. And do you know why? Because he trusts me. I've always supported him. He doesn't doubt me because I've never given him a reason to. That's why this trip feels wrong. I've given him reasons to worry. He watched as she picked up a bag from the bed and the two women left the room. Sal leaned back, thinking about what he had just seen. It was becoming clear to him that she wasn't being honest, and he had a strong feeling it was with Donald. This confirmed his thoughts about Reuben and Sarah being in on this, and that Lucienne wasn't innocent either. It was troubling, but it wasn't the solid proof he was searching for. It was serious, but not straightforward. He started the video again. A maid entered, humming as she made the bed and cleaned up. He fast-forwarded through her time. Next, he saw Alice come into the room. She went to the bed, getting ready. Ready to see him? It was Sarah's voice off-screen. Alice nodded, showing she was prepared. Sal watched as Donald approached her and made a playful comment. "Keep winking at me like that, and I'll have you right here." Alice jokingly pushed his hand away. "Get off, Don." Sal could walk in. "I'd deal with him if he said anything. He's not that big, right, Reuben?" Sal realized that Alice had put herself in an awkward position in front of both Reuben and Donald. He shook his head as he watched. She was adjusting her clothing now. "I don't think that would happen. I've seen him fight. Reuben may like to think he caught Sal by surprise, but Sal would win easily. He's a little guy, just a small man. Reuben wasn't paying attention, was he? Don't push him, Donald. We've managed this long without him suspecting anything because he trusts me. Let me handle this." "You don't need him, Al. Even with a little help, I can offer you more than he can. I can help even when he isn't around. He's my husband, Don. My husband. That poor guy made a mistake, didn't he?" Donald chuckled lightly. Alice kept calm as she adjusted her outfit. "Don't worry. Luce has been with him today. I told her to be extra friendly. She'll find out if he knows anything or if he's just upset. He's going to be upset when he realizes we'll be away for a few days, so please don't make things worse." Donald smiled playfully. "I'm not causing trouble. I told you this resort would be the perfect getaway for us, and look, I haven't let you down. With him gone, it makes things easier. His worry only adds to the thrill. It doesn't feel thrilling to me, Don. I want a happy marriage when we get back home, not a breakup. Don't risk my marriage." "I promise I'll be good." "You'd better. Now let's find him and Lucy so we can eat together." They left the area. The next scene showed Sal arriving earlier than expected. He checked his watch and realized he was running late. He quickly cleared the video he had just watched and stored it safely online. After putting away his laptop, he took out his passport and flight ticket, thinking it was safer in his hands than in hers. He could see that his marriage was likely over. That video revealed enough for him to understand the situation. He left his clothes where they were, not wanting to raise any suspicions about his plans. He hoped Lucienne would convince them he was just upset. But little did he know she was not being faithful. He had a meeting with Charlie tomorrow night that he couldn't miss. Charlie might help him find a boat to reach the small island where their gathering would happen. Tomorrow he wanted to move on quickly from Lucienne. He planned to leave the resort. It was going to be a long day. He stood up and stretched, knowing he had to interact with people at the bar. This wouldn't be easy, but he needed to stay strong. He had faced tough challenges before, dealing with people who did bad things, but he never imagined it would involve his own marriage. He walked to the bar, taking slow, deep breaths as he approached. He saw a group gathered and walked over to join them. "I see you made it back down here before me," he called to Lucienne as he got closer. She laughed. "By just a minute or two, honey. I just got here too." He thought she was not being truthful, but smiled at her anyway. "Is everyone set with a drink?" he asked, rubbing his hands together. "It's table service, Sal," Reuben replied. Sal nodded. "Great. That means I won't have to carry them back myself." He looked for an extra chair in their group, but saw none available. He walked to a nearby table, made sure it was okay, and grabbed a spare chair for their group. Donald stood up, but Sal didn't pay him any attention. He placed his chair between his wife and Sarah. "Slide over, you two," he said as they made room. He noticed an empty spot next to Reuben and Lucienne, but chose not to interact with them. "It's nice to finally meet you," Donald said, holding out his hand. Sal didn't shake hands and looked at him from his seat. "Sal," Alice said gently. "What? I just want some space." Donald looked a bit let down and sighed as he sat down. He picked up his drink and took a sip. A waiter came to Sal's side. "Sir, can I bring you a drink?" "Sal, the whiskey's good," Donald suggested. "Thanks, but I'll have a rum and coke, please," he replied with a smile. "Sal," Alice said firmly. "What is it?" "I don't think I need another drink right now," he said, keeping a calm look. "That wasn't very friendly. Donald's having whiskey." "I didn't say much. I think that's a quote from Winston Churchill," he said, noticing a small smile from Lucienne, which showed his comment had an effect on Donald. "So, how was the outing today, Lou?" Donald asked. "I enjoyed it. Honestly, it was probably one of my favorite days of the vacation so far. And you, Sal? Did you have a nice day? Sal shrugged as the waiter returned with his drink. One more, please. Just like this. Alice looked at him and saw a slight smile on Reuben's face. Are you okay? He shook his head. Not really. I'm feeling far from okay. If okay was an island, I'm in a canoe paddling away from it. Actually, let's say I'm in a speedboat going faster. Alice reached her hand out to him, but he moved a bit away, avoiding her touch. He noticed her studying his face. What was the outing? I heard it was to an island. Lucien spoke to the group. It was a boat ride about an hour long. Sal stayed quiet, slowly swirling his drink, watching the liquid move. The ride was about an hour. The sea was calm. I sat with your husband. It gave me a chance to talk with him a bit. We explored the island. It wasn't that big, but there was a lot to see, and your husband was taking pictures. Alice chuckled softly. He enjoys that. Even on vacation, he has to keep his camera with him. Won't let it out of his sight. It was interesting to see how he takes pictures. I like to think I can take a good photo, but talking to a professional about how he picks a shot was really captivating. I'd love to see the photos he took today to compare with mine. Sal looked at her. I'm sure I can share some photos from this trip if you want. I'd like that. I'm excited to spend more time with you in the next few days. Honestly, I'm hoping to spend time with my wife. I liked our time together today, but I came on this trip to be with Alice, and it hasn't gone as I hoped. I wouldn't call it a disaster, Sal. It hasn't been for you. For me, it's been pretty disappointing. Donald spoke up. That's quite an exaggeration. This place has its quirks, but it's a nice spot to relax. Sal shook his head. Alice, I can't be away from you for the next few days. This trip is about the gold rings, and I know you are expected to go. Being a gold ring seems more important to you than spending time together. You can skip it if you want, Sal said softly. I don't think she can. Yes, she can, Sal replied firmly. You don't have to go. You can stay here with me, and they won't mind. Alice, I want you to enjoy this resort. If I stay here, it'll just be the same. You'll be with the group, and we won't be together. That's not true, Alice. You can choose to be with me. I can take us out of the resort and into the city easily. We can spend time together, eat together, and do what we like. We can find plenty of fun places and have a real vacation instead of this situation. He could see Alice looking around at the others. Sal, we're only here for 2 weeks. Can't you make the best of it for Alice's sake? Sarah leaned forward. I think you've been affecting her mood since she arrived. You're not usually with her for most of the week, yet you come here and expect her to stay by your side. This is just 2 weeks. I know you're feeling down, but make it special for her. She's your wife. Value your time together. It's your choice, Sal said, looking directly at Alice. I can't decide for you. He could see Alice was torn. Sal, you have Lucy here for company. It's not a problem to spend time with her, is it? Sarah continued. Alice will be with us, having fun, relaxing, doing all the things a girl should enjoy on her vacation. We'll take care of her, and she'll be back with you to share what she's done. You can enjoy discussing how much you've liked your time here and the peace. Sal, I'd like to go, Alice said quietly. Your choice. Just remember, I asked you not to go. I've told you I'm not happy, and it seems like you're forgetting that. I wanted to have some time with you, just you and me. Sal, stop being so dramatic, Reuben said, trying to lighten the mood. She'll be back with you when this is over. You're making it a bigger deal than it is. Sal stared at Reuben, both of them quiet for a moment. Finally, Reuben looked away. I'll make it up to you when I get back, she said. There you go, Reuben replied, sounding cheerful. She'll make it right when she returns. Just be patient for a few days. Sal noticed Donald smiling softly. Don't listen to them. This is just a small moment. Our marriage is stronger than this. I will always come back to you. I love you and want to start a family after this trip. I know this vacation hasn't been great, but we'll get through it together. Sal took a long sip of his drink. He felt like he had done all he could. His heart was heavy. Now it was up to her. He was ready to go to his room and be away from everyone. He knew the next few days would be tough. He had to stay strong and gather the evidence he needed for his story. He was sure now that his marriage was over. Hey, look at those two over there, Donald said in a low voice, breaking the silence. Don't all stare at once. Be discreet, please. Are they the ones we talked about? Sarah asked. Donald nodded. Yes, we met them when we first got here. They seemed like our type, but there were hints that they might be, a bit different than we thought. Lucienne giggled lightly. They weren't hiding it at all. Some people really do have that kind of relationship, Sarah added. Sal stared at his drink, feeling curious about where this conversation was heading. He decided to stay quiet and see what would happen. He remembered the earlier talk he had overheard, and it might be interesting. That's why I came over to introduce myself to them, Donald continued. Sal looked up in surprise. You talked to them? Donald nodded. Yeah, they seemed safer, a little more traditional than the others. Oh, interesting. I was wondering how you met them, Sal replied. They approached us the other day when we were at the spa. Since then, we've been spending time together, Sarah said. That's why we encouraged Lucy to be with you today. We like Donald. He fits in well, and we thought you'd have fun with Lucy. It's funny. You act like you've known them much longer than just a few days. You seem so comfortable with them, and the way your wife spoke earlier showed she knew them well. Donald chuckled awkwardly. Actually, I just met them the other day. In my job, I need to be friendly and help people feel comfortable. I guess that rubbed off on me. I can fit in anywhere. Wow, that's surprising. It really shows that you never know much about people, right? What do you mean? Sal noticed he had their attention, so he decided to guide the conversation back to the previous topic. They seem just like us, but they choose to live a different lifestyle. I would never have guessed. Donald laughed, and soon everyone else joined in. I thought you were talking about how we met. No, I know that part. So, Don, do you ever stray from your marriage vows? Sal enjoyed Donald's shocked reaction as he nearly spilled his drink. What are you talking about, Sal? Alice exclaimed. Why would you ask that? He shrugged. We were discussing relationships, weren't we? I just haven't had a chance to get to know Don very well. I was curious. Donald sat up straighter. I have a happy marriage. I love my wife, and I would never risk that. Sal nodded thoughtfully. He took a sip of his drink, appreciating Donald's serious reply. What about you, Sal? Have you ever strayed from your commitments? Donald asked back. Sal shook his head. Nope, never. I think cheating is one of the worst things a person can do. It really hurts people. He paused to let his words resonate. For me, marriage vows are important. I know some people view them differently, but I believe breaking them is just wrong. He spoke slowly and with clear intent, looking around at the group. Some seemed uncomfortable, but he wanted to share his thoughts while he had the chance. I understand not everyone agrees with me. That's just how I feel. Those were strong words. Not everyone can resist temptation as easily as you, Lucienne replied. Then don't get married. Don't lead someone on. Don't tell someone you care for them and then betray them. If you're tempted, and we all are to some extent, talk to your partner. Treat them with respect and see if the issue can be worked out. That's what's right to do. Cheating shows a lack of strength. Sal paused, finishing his first drink and reaching for another. He caught the waiter's eye and raised his glass. So, you're not the type to forgive and forget then, Lucienne said with a slight smile. I'm not sure. I've never been in a situation like that before. You know, they seem happy with their choices, Sarah said, pointing to a couple across the room. They're not fooling anyone, are they? What do you mean? They've talked and agreed on how they want to live. It might not be how I would choose to live, but they have an understanding. To me, there's nothing hidden or dishonest. They have rules for their relationship. That's very different from sneaking around and not being, Lucienne suggested. We only have one life. Sal tuned out a bit as the talk went on. He realized they were discussing this for his sake. Lucienne seemed to be hinting at being open, and he noticed Alice looking uncomfortable beside him. Reuben looked like he was enjoying the conversation. He raised his glass for another drink. What about you, Alice? He heard Donald ask. What do you think? I think we should talk about something else, she said softly. Don't be boring. It's interesting to hear different views. Reuben jumped in. I didn't know Sal felt so strongly about cheating. Did you know he felt this way? Alice shook her head. It's not something we've ever talked about. I don't think it matters to us. What about trust between partners? Didn't seeing other people cause your last breakup? That was a long time ago. But with Sal's reaction when cheating came up, it seems like there are still some feelings there. If there are problems in our marriage, it's for me and Sal to work them out, Alice said. We can't fix our marriage if you won't admit there are problems, Sal replied. Alice looked at him, surprised he continued to speak. I've told you I'm unhappy, very unhappy, and you're not listening. I've tried to share this. That's not the same. Reuben was talking about cheating. Sal waved his hand. A problem is a problem. I don't see a difference. I've tried to tell you how I feel, that we have issues in our marriage. I've been patient, but there comes a time when we need to face these challenges. When we get back from this trip, we'll have a long talk about our marriage, I promise. Sal shook his head. I'm sorry, Al, I can't wait that long. We have a problem right now, not in a week. Sal, we will talk about it. Everyone at the table could hear the strength in her voice. No, we won't. You're making a mistake if you think I'll wait. I've tried and you shut me down. By the end of this holiday, I don't think we'll even have a conversation. No, Alice replied firmly, her face red. Sal couldn't tell if it was anger or embarrassment. There's no issue in our marriage that we can't sit down, talk about, and fix. I love you, and I'm committed to you. We can talk and work this out. What you're feeling is just a moment in our long, happy relationship. Sorry, Al, but that's not true. I'm done talking. You haven't listened. You haven't respected me. Why should I wait to talk? The time for a discussion isn't in a week after you've ignored me. Why should I bother? Sal shook his head. Sal, I think you need to hold back a bit, Donald said. Sal turned to look at him, noticing Reuben trying not to laugh. I don't know. He's not hiding how he feels, is he? Reuben chuckled. Sal turned red as he realized. He saw Sarah struggling to keep a straight face. Donald had a big smile, not looking at his wife. Lucienne looked confused. She sensed something was off. What? What did I miss? Sal leaned forward slowly and set his drink on the table. In my relationship with my wife, we had begun to explore some different ways of being together. She had decided to limit parts of our closeness. He looked at Lucienne and noticed her cheeks getting red. I don't know, he said. Well, I do know. It seems my wife has chosen to share this with everyone at the table. He glanced at Alice, who was staring at her hands and not meeting his eyes. He stood up. I don't care where you go. Just don't come back to our room tonight. I'll make sure I'm out by morning so you can get ready for your trip. Don't say anything else to me. He left the table, trying to keep his composure. It was hard to hold it together. He felt embarrassed, especially knowing that everyone around them was aware of his feelings. Keeping his promise, Sal left the room early to avoid Alice. She had not returned. It was clear she needed some things for her trip. He walked down to the beach, seeking a quiet place. He wanted to stay out of her way until they had to leave. He hadn't slept well, with thoughts racing through his mind. There were so many questions he couldn't answer. He knew he needed proof now. A part of him wanted to hide, but he understood that if he didn't find the evidence for what was happening, he would regret it later on. He accepted that his marriage was over. She had made her decision. He wasn't going back to her, not after all that had happened. Anger brewed inside him, fueled by feeling misled for too long. He realized he hadn't noticed the signs because he hadn't looked for them. He had trusted her completely and had been away from home too much. That trust allowed her to stray. He decided to cut her out of his life, end the relationship, and move on. But even though he understood that, the pain of this change was difficult. The hurt he felt was real and heavy. He waited until he knew their bus had left before heading to the restaurant for breakfast. Part of him hoped she might have stayed, recognized her mistakes, and understood how deeply he felt. First, he needed to eat. Then he could think about everything else. That evening, he had a meeting with Charlie. Being a local, Charlie was likely his best chance to learn how to reach the island and get the equipment he needed. As Sal enjoyed his breakfast, he mentally prepared for what was ahead. He had done similar work before. It wasn't new to him. He was accustomed to collaborating with a team and often worked with an investigative journalist. Undercover tasks were a routine part of his job. He pictured everything clearly in his mind. Good morning. Can I sit with you? Sal looked up and waved for Lucienne to join him. I wanted to see you today. I wanted to check if you're okay after our talk last night. Thanks for asking. I'm not okay. I'm having a hard time. Alice was really upset when you left. She stayed with Sarah and Reuben last night, just so you know. Sal shook his head. I didn't know. Honestly, as long as she wasn't with me, I didn't care where she went. She didn't want to leave today. Sal looked around. That's up to her. I guess she decided to go. Lucienne nodded. I think if she'd seen you, she might have wanted to stay. I made sure to avoid her. I don't want to see her. Sal, you're married. You'll be on the same flight home soon. After their trip, you'll be back together. I understand how you feel, but this isn't the end. Lucienne, my wife wasn't honest with me last night. She and everyone else at that table misled me. It felt like a trap that embarrassed me. She didn't mean for that to happen. No way. She wouldn't set me up on purpose. But she did. Call it what you want, Lucienne, but she set me up and it hurt. I'm not sure, Sal. You stood up for yourself a few times. You called Donald out more than once. That man is awful. Sadly, he'll need to face bigger issues for anyone to really pay attention. You have a strong opinion about someone you just met. Did I really make him sound that bad yesterday? Sal leaned back in his chair, holding his empty plate and coffee cup. I'm a photographer, and I have been for a long time. One thing about photographers is that we remember faces well. It's essential for our work. Every face is unique, and to take a good picture, you need to understand how to frame it right. He took a sip of his drink. When I'm working, I focus on people's faces. Some might forget what others look like, but not me. I'm very good at remembering them. Alice mentioned you were taking photos for money as a teen. Yep, I photographed weddings, parties, graduations, and more. While you all were in college, I was working. I've seen many faces, and while I can't remember them all, I remember quite a few. Lucienne watched him closely as he drank his coffee. That's how I realized you all weren't honest with me last night. Not honest? Yep, Donald knew Reuben from college. They were in the same fraternity. Oh, Sal, I'm sorry. Don't be, Lucienne. Saying we just met the other day is a huge stretch. I recognized him the moment I saw him in reception on the first day. I didn't fully understand why he was here, but I knew who he was. You all tricked me, made a fool of me. Sal, I'm sorry. I had a nice day yesterday, and I regret what happened last night. I truly apologize. Sal shrugged. Thanks for being honest and saying sorry. He put down his coffee and stood up. I have a few things to take care of. Enjoy the rest of your day. He started to walk away. Sal. She called after him. He stopped and turned around slowly. Don't let this change you, okay? You're a good person. You'll get through this. Alice was right when she said this is just a moment in your life. Be gentle with yourself and stay true to who you are. I know it's tough, but be real. Sal nodded slowly. It was good advice. Thank you. He walked back to his room and prepared the cameras he would need for the evening. He packed his bag and got a change of clothes ready. He reviewed the footage of Alice coming back to her room to gather her things. She was with Sarah, who was helping her pack while Alice looked for him. Alice seemed frustrated not to find him. She didn't look well. It seemed like neither of them had a good night. They were talking about her leaving. Alice seemed unsure, while Sarah encouraged her to go. Sal thought it was ultimately her choice as he watched them leave the frame, and the footage faded to black. He had done what he could. Now it was out of his hands. With some free time, he decided to take photos of the resort. He thought about the article he planned to write and how it might sound. He knew he wanted certain pictures to go with it, and now was a great time to explore and take them. The morning passed quickly as he got the shots he wanted. He thought about visiting the spa for a treatment, but remembered his situation and felt a wave of frustration wash over him. His first task was to resolve that issue. He had checked it and knew that while it seemed fine, there were ways to fix it. After a quick lunch, he saw Lucienne as he entered the restaurant but chose not to sit with her. He noticed her hopeful expression fade as he sat at a distance. After lunch, he called his driver for a pickup. Dealing with his situation took some work. Unlike New York, finding a locksmith here was tricky and required local knowledge. After some time, he found a solution and felt relieved to be free of it. He tipped the man well, thankful he wouldn't need to look for help like that again. He walked to meet Charlie, stopping for a drink on the way. He hoped Charlie hadn't forgotten about their meeting. Charlie was sitting in the same chair as before. Sal waved as he walked over and felt happy to see the man smile at him. I was worried you wouldn't come back. How are you? It's been a tough week, but things are starting to change for me. I'm sorry to hear that, Sal. You're a good person. Thanks for saying that, Charlie. Not everyone would. I didn't want to, Sal. I really didn't. Would you like a drink? I'm still working on this one, thanks. Are we still on for tonight? Definitely. I'm taking you out with the guys to help you relax. Sal chuckled. That sounds great. A change of scenery for a bit would be nice, but I have another favor to ask. Of course, if I can help, just let me know. I want to go to the island where the gold rings are. Charlie looked unsure about the idea. I need proof. If I want to move forward, I need evidence. I need a way to get to the island and back. Sal, what you're asking? Charlie, I work as a photographer for the New York Times. This is what I do. Sneak into places and take photos. I can pay. Can you help me? Charlie sat quietly, thinking. Sal stayed patient. He knew he could persuade him. He was good at this. One of my son-in-laws is a fisherman. He has a boat. I'm sure he can help. It will cost you. I'm happy to pay. I just need to get to the island, take some photos, and then be picked up. I'm okay with paddling the last bit if they can drop me near the beach. Charlie smiled. You've done this before? Something like it. A private island owned by a very wealthy man. I had a partner that time. Let me get Archie. I'll introduce you so you can make plans together. While Charlie went to find Archie, Sal enjoyed a few beers in the afternoon sun. Archie was a tall man, strong from many years of working. He fished with his own boat and sometimes took tourists out when he could. Charlie helped them talk, as he knew the name of the island. They discussed how things would work and the costs involved. After a beer, a handshake, and some cash changed hands, Archie agreed to prepare a canoe for Sal to use to get to the island and back. The afternoon passed slowly with people chatting and drinks being shared. Sal didn't plan to overdo it. As a photographer, he knew how to handle himself. It felt nice to have a few cold drinks in a warm, dusty area, taking a break from the stress of his marriage. This was his moment. He felt a sense of clarity and was ready to embrace his own path. Sal thought it would just be him and Charlie, but more friends decided to join them. When they arrived, Sal started taking photos. Charlie moved around, greeting different friends along the way. Sal met everyone and tried to fit in and take in the lively atmosphere. The celebration was bright, with everyone in colorful clothes. As the night went on, a band began playing, and later a DJ joined in. Sal felt happy with his photography, capturing the joyful spirit and relaxed Caribbean feel. He found himself enjoying the music and the friendly company, dancing and laughing along with everyone. Eventually, a taxi driver came to pick him up. It took some time to say goodbye to his friends and dance partners, but before leaving, he shared a warm hug with Charlie, thankful for the night. Don't let that resort be your only memory of our island, Charlie encouraged as they said goodbye. The next morning, Sal woke up late for breakfast. He hurried to grab a couple of croissants, some fruit, and a coffee, finally settling down to enjoy the view of the ocean. Can I join you? Lucienne asked. Of course. Would you like anything? A coffee would be great. Sal got up to make her a coffee, returning to the table with a smile. How was your day yesterday? Lucienne asked. I tried to find you a couple of times but missed you. I wasn't at the resort. I met up with a friend I told you about. I was taking photos at his dance club. The father of the bride? I can't pretend it hasn't crossed my mind, he admitted. It's still on my mind. She reached out and touched his arm. Selfishly, I'm glad you stayed. I know you might not believe me, but our day together was one of the best I've had in a long time. Sal noticed her worried look. I enjoyed our trip and our meal, but it felt like things went downhill after that. I know this is a big ask, but can we spend time together today? She asked. Have they asked you to watch me again? He replied, seeing the hurt in her eyes. He felt bad. It wasn't a fair question. I'll make you a deal, just for today. You can spend time with me and we can hang out, he said. Her face lit up with a smile, but he held up a finger. But if you mislead me in any way, I'm done for the day and you'll have to be alone. A small smile appeared on her face. You'd leave me alone for the rest of the day? Yeah, I enjoyed our time. You're bright and fun to talk to, but if you cross that line, we're done. She reached out her hand. Okay, I'll accept that deal. Just to be clear, if I leave you alone today, tomorrow is a different story. Sal smiled back. I can handle that. So, is there something specific you want to do? She laughed, and it made him feel lighter. He enjoyed the feeling of freedom. I love the sauna and steam rooms. Maybe we could try a mud bath if you're up for it. A manicure and pedicure would be nice too. A massage sounds good. Sal finished his coffee and stood up. I'll meet you in front of the spa. Lucienne stood up, her face full of gratitude. Thank you for giving me another chance. Let's see how long you can keep it. I doubt we'll make it to lunch, but I'll spend time with you until then, he said. Sal went back to his room to change for the day at the spa. He had enjoyed Lucienne's company before and looked forward to a fun. He sat in the chair next to Lucienne, but while she was busy chatting with the manicurist, they didn't have a chance to talk. Well? Lucienne asked when they met up later. Well, what do you mean? What do you think about the pedicure? He showed her his hands. She laughed. Is this your first time? He nodded. Would you do it again? Yeah, it was better than I thought it would be. I thought it was mostly for women. Oh, men can enjoy this too. Look at my nails. He admired her nails, which had a shiny pink look he had never seen before. Wow, I really like those. That's a neat effect. Thanks. I was surprised too. Let's see if you'd want to try a mud bath next. You're 1 for 1 so far. Can we talk in the mud bath? Ha, you caught me, doing things where I can't annoy you. And when you're happy, I get to spend time with you. Lucienne, I really enjoy our time together. You're fun, smart, and great to be around. But am I good enough for you? They were taken to the spa's reception area and then led to the mud baths. They chose to share one, both in swimsuits. You look good like that, Lucienne said with a smile, looking him over. Thanks. I work out a few times a week. Do you box? He nodded. Lucienne got into her bath first, and then he followed. He flinched at the heat, but soon got used to it. Are you any good at boxing? My partner didn't like it. She came to watch once and didn't enjoy it, so I promised I wouldn't compete again. He paused for a moment. But it looks like I might get back into it. My brothers both box. They were amateurs, nothing special. Really? Yeah, they fought in Boston League's Division 3. How about you? New York, Division 1, he said calmly. She sat up in surprise. No way. Yep, I'm serious. New York, Division 1 for 3 years before my coach told me to take a break. Wow. I fought in the flyweight class, of course. Well, that explains your build. She laughed gently. My brothers think they can take you in a fight. They might be in for a surprise. No problem, let them try if they want. Funny. While I'm not fond of my husband, I wouldn't want to see you hurt him. Oh, I knew you boxed, but not at that level. You must have been really good. I enjoyed it. It's a great workout, and I've been boxing since I was young. Because of your size. Sal nodded. He started boxing to keep bullies away, and it worked, but he gained much more from the sport than just the ability to defend himself. Most kids were taller than him, but boxing taught him discipline and helped him stay fit. He never smoked, and heavy drinking didn't appeal to him. Boxing helped him stay focused and able to take care of himself. Looking fit was a nice bonus. Boxing wasn't just about hitting hard, it also involved confidence in the ring. He took pride in his appearance. While he couldn't change his height, he could keep his body lean and strong. He liked to look neat and wore clothes that made him feel good. Despite being shorter, he had a strong presence that he wanted to show. It keeps me fit, teaches me discipline, and makes me feel safe. I really like it. I'd love to see you box. Sal considered her words. Lucienne, I admire a lot about you. But to be honest, I don't think our relationship will last much longer. Honey, I'm not your enemy. Right now, yes, you're married. I'm not going to make your marriage worse. I wish you would. Would that help you? No thanks. If you want to change, you have to make it happen yourself. You need to take charge. Things are different now. I have my own challenges, Lucienne. They aren't because of me, but my life is tough right now. I can't help you. I don't have the strength. I'm just trying to handle my own situation. Lucienne didn't say anything. She looked down. They finished their activities and went to lunch. The conversation flowed easily, and they enjoyed learning about each other. They had a similar sense of humor and playfulness. Sal was still cautious, but he didn't feel any dishonesty from her. In the afternoon, they had a massage and then met in the steam room, where different scents filled the air. Later, they returned to the spa reception and were directed to the changing area. Sal changed and took a towel. He turned to see Lucienne also preparing for the next part of their day. Nice. She looked at him and smiled. I see you joined in. He smiled back. Yeah. Lucienne smiled with playful confidence. I like your honesty, she said. Let's go enjoy this. But first, She stood quite close to him, which seemed a little awkward. I need to clarify something. The device you mentioned is important. If you have a black ring, you need to wear it here. The resort makes sure of that. I don't want you to leave now that I've finally captured your attention. You noticed I was wearing it the other day? Yes. It didn't change how I feel about you. I think you love your wife, but you were playing a bit. She wasn't playing, but I think you were. She wasn't? No. She knew she had to get you on board before the trip. It was decided. She took Sal's hand and led him into the warm, steamy space of the steam room. They took a moment to get used to the thick air as they looked around. There was a cool pool for a quick dip and a smaller warm pool for relaxing. Off to the side, there were some other small rooms, a few saunas and steam rooms. Some other guests were there too, and he nodded politely at them. They went into a steam room and sat down. Sal liked the atmosphere and enjoyed spending time with her. She noticed his interest and leaned back a little, smiling softly. As they moved between the rooms, their conversation flowed easily. So, how are things with your wife? Sal paused to think. I'm not sure. I think she might be seeing someone else. You seem to know that too. Your words suggest you understand her pretty well. Well, you've made your feelings about cheating clear. There have been a few awkward moments when you spoke about it. I'm honest about it. Right now I have no proof, but I feel like something's off. I'm hurt by how she's acted during this trip. What are you planning to do? I want to find proof. I owe it to Alice. We've been married for 10 years. She deserves a chance to explain. Lately, it feels like our marriage is in trouble. If she is with someone else, that changes things. If she wants to stop, I believe I'll find out the truth eventually. Since I've begun to look into it, it shouldn't be too difficult to gather the facts. He realized he wasn't being completely honest with her. He had good reasons to suspect something but didn't want to reveal everything. He was ready for what might happen next. He needed proof for the story he was writing about the situation. He focused back on her words. You sound confident. Are you going to hire a private investigator or something? Sal shrugged. Why do that? I'm an investigative journalist. I can do this myself. No need to spend extra money. Do you think they'll try to hide it? I believe if they have any sense, they'll behave themselves. I expect a regretful wife and for them to avoid each other for a while. Maybe even end things. That would be the smart choice. Lucien smiled at his response. If they have any sense. Sal shrugged again. I think they'll believe they've gotten away with it. My sadness will pass. And that's how you'll catch them? By letting them think they're safe and then revealing the truth? Exactly. I have a clever plan. Want to share it? Nope. You didn't help me when you could have, so why should I believe you now? Lucien looked surprised and a bit hurt. When did I not help you? When did I let you down? The other day you went back to the restaurant and sat with them. When I walked in later, you said you had just arrived. Yes, I see your point about the timing, but you're wrong about what I was doing there. I'm not sure how much you really know. Sal acted shocked. Come on, that's not fair, is it? Maybe it is. Donald and Reuben are old friends from college. Right. Donald was in the same fraternity as Reuben. You knew this? They wear the same fraternity ring. I'm a photographer. I notice things. I told you I knew they were friends. You're repeating what I mentioned. No, there's more. Did you know Donald and Sarah dated? Sal shook his head. No, I didn't know. Anytime Donald wanted to be with her, he'd just ask Reuben to step aside. I didn't know that about Reuben, quite the character. Believe me, you don't know the whole story. Then I met Donald and we got married. He was nice for a while, but then things changed. Reuben and Sarah stayed together and even got married. That's surprising. I don't know all the details, but I think they were doing things differently while Donald focused on our life together. When he felt restless in our marriage, he reached out to them again, and their old dynamic returned. It really makes you think. I'm curious. What's your role in all of this? She laughed lightly. I'm like you. I married Donald thinking I'd found a great guy. He liked my family name and connections while I thought he loved me. I'm not unattractive, and I've always had attention from men. She winked at Sal. Well, until this week. Sal smiled. Oh, I'm interested. I think you're wonderful. But I'm not looking to start anything right now. Why not? I just can't support cheating. I want to be a better person. not sink to their level just because someone is interested. Is that right? I'm not very tall at 5'4". I usually don't get noticed much. That's fine. Keep it that way and we'll get along perfectly. Your height doesn't bother me. I think you're great, just so you know. I've never been unfaithful to my husband. Sal raised an eyebrow. No games, Sal. I haven't done anything wrong since I've been married to Donald. He even said he might be open to seeing someone else after I brought up the idea of an open marriage. Sal laughed again. I heard about that, and neither he nor Alice seemed to like it much. So, you've never been with anyone else? I never wanted to. At first, I was very happy with Donald. I had the life I wanted with a successful and charming man. Why would I want anything else? But then I found out he wasn't being faithful, and I had to decide. Should I divorce him and lose everything or ignore it? I chose to keep the peace, and for a long time, it worked. She sipped her water and they walked to the pool area, sitting down to relax. Eventually, he admitted that he had seen someone else. We talked, and he confessed he had been with Sarah. I met both Sarah and Reuben, but I didn't really like them. Sarah seemed jealous of me, and Reuben seemed interested but knew Donald would not approve. It was a strange situation. So where does Alice fit into this? Alice is close to her sister. One time, during a chat, your sister-in-law mentioned how happy her marriage was due to the freedom they had. At first, I think Alice was surprised, but over time they helped her learn about that lifestyle. Eventually, they introduced her to Donald. Donald knows how to charm people and was able to persuade her to think about it. I've never had a complaint. Lucienne smiled at him. You look good, but you're not quite as charming as Donald. He definitely stands out. I think the idea of trying something new was too tempting for her, especially hearing how great he was and how easy it was to keep things from you. It seems she gave in to that mix of excitement. How long have they been together? About 1.5 years, as far as I know. If it helps, I think this vacation is meant to be a last chance for fun before she settles down and starts a family with you. That's nice of her, Sal said. That's Alice's view. I think Donald hopes she'll try to convince you to accept him in her life. He's happy to keep things casual if he wants. That won't happen. I think Alice knows that too. I told Donald at the restaurant that you would never go along with his plans. I mentioned that you were upset about the holiday and how she was treating you, but you didn't suspect anything about their relationship. I thought that might make them think twice. Then I came in and caused a stir. Oh, you definitely did. I know him well, and you pushed all his buttons. It was no surprise he reacted strongly and ended up sharing more than he intended. Thanks for being honest, Lucienne. I really appreciate it. I'm sorry, Sal. I wish I could have given you better news. That's okay. As a favor, I have some advice for you. Lucienne smiled. I'm listening. Think about ending things with that person you can't trust. Get away from that situation as soon as you can. It's changing you from someone who deserves respect into someone who is okay with being treated poorly. Is that who you want to be? I really think you should move on quickly. Start the process and find some support to help you discover yourself again. Figure out who you want to be. Is that what I need to do to have a chance with you? She asked softly. No, this isn't about me. It's about what you need to do for yourself to regain your self-respect. Take some time for yourself without rushing into it. Focus on being happy with who you are, and everything else will follow. He noticed tears in her eyes as she looked at him through her blurry vision. Am I really that lost? Not at all. You can find your way back, but if you stay on this path, it will be harder. There is someone wonderful inside you. Give her a chance to shine. But you can't do that if you stay with the wrong person. He sat beside her for a moment, then gave her a comforting pat on the leg. I have a nice picture of you that I took the other day. I'll make sure to give it to you, okay? You'll see me again. Now, I have to go. Her head turned sharply to look at him. He shook his head. You didn't do anything wrong. I really have to go and take care of something. Take care and think about what I said. Sal felt a little flutter in his stomach as the plane lifted off the ground. He smiled to himself and took a deep breath. This whole vacation was now fading behind him. He knew the next few days would be busy. He needed to act quickly. There was a lot to do. It would be tough, but once he got through it, he could start to heal. Moving fast would help distract him and let him focus on what was in front of him. Part of him wanted to withdraw and feel sorry for himself, but he knew from experience that facing pain was the best way to handle it. He planned to decide what steps he needed to take next and concentrate on the present. He believed things would get better with time. The trip with Archie had been full of surprising moments. He had left Lucienne feeling upset and retreated to his room, finding her company interesting. He even thought about inviting her to join him, but he decided against it. He wasn't sure where her loyalties lay. He called his driver and organized his things, getting ready for a quick departure if needed. He carefully selected his clothes and made sure to pack his camera and equipment. He walked through the resort without anyone stopping him and headed down the road to meet the arriving driver. While he walked, he called Snoopy to check in. They talked about what he had discovered, and she agreed to investigate Donald Frost further. He thought highly of Snoopy's skills as an investigative journalist, knowing she could uncover important details. He also learned that Ding had collected useful digital information from the computers. Lastly, he asked Snoopy to find a good divorce lawyer just in case. When he reached the dock, Archie was waiting for him. After making sure he had everything, they set off on the boat. He was relieved he hadn't eaten, as he wasn't the best sailor, and the motion of the water often made him feel uneasy. Luckily, the trip to the island was short, but just long enough to make him nervous about coming back. He climbed into the water in his canoe and paddled to the beach, feeling strong and confident in his canoeing skills. He pulled the canoe up on the shore and made a note of where it was parked. There was a flashlight in the canoe for his return, so he could signal Archie when he was ready to go back. He had done this kind of thing before, and it still made him feel excited, but also a bit scared. There was a wildness to his adventure. He felt like he was in a thrilling spy movie, exploring a secret island to find something important. Although it was tough to think about capturing evidence related to his wife, he reminded himself that getting the story was the main goal, and he would deal with his feelings later. As he reached the island and hid the canoe from view, he heard music and saw lights, indicating that people were there and not trying to hide what they were doing. The remote location likely meant they were alone. He hadn't thought much about security, but there could be some guards around. It was best to stay cautious and quiet. He began to walk away from the beach, checking the paths carefully before choosing one. He moved quietly to avoid being seen. His aim was to understand what was happening and to take photos for proof. He crept closer, feeling a mix of curiosity and caution. Even though he had shared his plans with others, he knew he was in a risky situation and far from help. After about half an hour of careful movement, he arrived at an open area with a large tent structure. The tent was held up by strong metal poles, and the canvas was tightly stretched above, not touching the ground. Inside, there were cushions and mats set up for guests to relax. A food buffet nearby had a bar, surrounded by a few tables. Most of the guests were relaxed, resting comfortably on cushions. Sal moved closer to the bushes under the night sky, wanting to stay hidden. The pavilion was softly lit, with lights on the ground creating a warm, inviting glow that made it hard for anyone inside to spot him. He found a good spot to watch and got his camera ready to start taking pictures. He hadn't looked for his wife or anyone else yet. He wanted to concentrate on capturing the scene first. He aimed to stay calm and neutral, allowing no strong emotions to affect him. This was just a task. He intended to document everything in detail. He held up the camera, checked it to make sure it was quiet, and began to zoom in and take photos. There were about 50 to 60 people there, with a balance of men and women aged from their early 20s to late 50s. Some guests were asleep, curled up with each other, and he snapped pictures of them. The staff were busy refilling food and drinks, and he photographed them, too. He spotted his wife and took a couple of photos. He wanted to capture what was happening all around first. He took some wider shots, then focused on getting clear pictures of people's faces in groups. He wanted a complete collection of images. His marriage was ending. He had the evidence he thought he needed. The first picture of his wife showed her with another man nearby, and there were others watching. He concentrated on her and her group, taking pictures for almost an hour until they finally laid down on the ground. Some people came and went, but his wife stayed in view a lot, and he felt a twinge of jealousy. He understood more about what she had discussed before. He noticed her surroundings and the people with her. He saw signs of her involvement in the evening. When she finished and rested, waiting for a drink, Sal walked around the pavilion, capturing moments from the gathering as clearly as he could. The photos came out well. The resort's lighting was soft and clear, giving him the detail he wanted. As she enjoyed her drink and leaned into Donald, Sal quietly left the scene, making his way back to the beach. She didn't seem upset. She looked fine to him. She didn't appear to be forced into anything. She seemed aware of everything happening and, at times, appeared to enjoy herself. Setting aside his thoughts, he focused on leaving. He carefully wrapped his camera to keep it dry, then launched his canoe into the water and pushed off. Once it was far enough out and the tide was right, he got in and started paddling into deeper water. It took him much longer to leave the beach area and reach the open sea than it did when he arrived. Once he was a good distance out, he took out his flashlight, turning it on and off as he looked around at the dark water. The stars and moon gave some light, but visibility was low and he couldn't see the boat. He kept paddling, flashing his light every now and then. After a few tries, he noticed a light responding in the distance. He flashed his light again and changed direction, rowing hard toward it. After about 10 minutes, he got close enough to the boat. He handed over his camera gear before climbing on board. The two men put away the canoe. Sal didn't feel much like talking on the way back. He drank some cold water and sat quietly while the boat took a couple of hours to return to port. He tipped Archie generously, even though he protested, and said goodbye. After paying his driver to wait for him, he woke up the driver for the ride back to the resort. He quickly sent a text to Snoopy to let her know he was back, and everything had gone as planned so she wouldn't worry. He arranged for an early pickup the next day and went to bed. He set an alarm and went to have breakfast. Being the first one there, he enjoyed a quiet meal. After that, he returned to his room to pack. He didn't touch any of Alice's things, just his own. Once he was ready, he checked the time and left the resort for good, leaving his black ring on the table for Alice to take when she checked out. He decided not to leave a note. The car took him to the airport. After thanking his driver and giving a good tip, Sal walked into the cool building. He found his airline's desk and asked about a faster return flight. It was more expensive, but he managed to book a flight before his wife would return to their resort, which was his main goal. With a few hours before his flight, he saved the pictures onto his laptop and backed them up in cloud storage. He called Snoopy for a quick chat about the end of his marriage, and she agreed to help him find a divorce lawyer. This wasn't how he had imagined finishing his holiday. As he sat in the coffee shop waiting for his flight to be called, he couldn't help but wonder how everything had gone so wrong. He had met her for the first time at a wedding where he was the photographer. While taking posed shots, he noticed a beautiful girl with blue eyes and honey-blonde hair, a friend of the bride. He felt she was out of his league, and aside from sharing smiles during the day, nothing else happened. He saw that she was with a tall, successful young man who seemed to care for her. Over that summer, he spotted her at a few weddings. Smiles turned into conversations, and then they made plans for a date. He took her to the beach, where they spent a lovely evening together. He guessed this was not the kind of outing she usually had, and he was right. She had a great time, and he took many nice pictures. His camera was with them wherever they went, capturing their fun moments. He felt proud of taking her to places others might not think about, always mindful to respect her space. His upbringing taught him to treat women well, inspired by his strong mother and older sisters. He had not tried to make any moves. Instead, he wanted her to tell him when she was ready. He was calm, patient, and always dependable. He showed up at her door 10 minutes early, bringing a small bouquet for her mother, looking neat and tidy. Instead of fancy restaurants, he took her on simple adventures like hiking, visiting the beach, or going to a fun fair. Moments filled with laughter and curiosity about their next stop. He was different from her usual type, and at first, she wasn't very confident about their future together. Coming from a working-class family, he didn't have much money, and his parents were not part of the elite crowd. He worked hard and chased his passion for photography. She admired his determination, even if she knew he wasn't quite in her world. But he had a certain charm and dressed well, making her feel comfortable. Their time together was relaxed and enjoyable, and she found herself looking forward to each outing. She also loved his photography. He had a great eye and captured beautiful pictures of her. He even took her along as his helper to a fancy wedding, giving her a taste of a different lifestyle. That summer was truly enjoyable, and their bond grew stronger. They started holding hands and sharing sweet moments. A week before college began, he felt a special closeness with her. It was a nice way to show appreciation for the wonderful summer they had shared. However, it was also a bittersweet moment, as they both knew it would be hard to keep their connection once she went back to school. He worried about her returning to college and whether they could stay close despite the distance. Their last meeting felt hopeful, and she hadn't chosen to end things, which he had half expected. Maybe there was still a chance for them. But things did not last. They faced some difficult times. He wrote her thoughtful letters and made several calls, trying to reach out to her. He remained calm, even when it was hard to reach her or she didn't reply. Wanting to surprise her, he packed a picnic and looked for nice spots to enjoy together. When he arrived at her apartment, she wasn't home. Her roommate seemed confused when he asked where she was. He waited nearby for a few hours, and when she finally came back, she was with another young man. His heart sank. He had feared this might happen, though he had hoped it wouldn't, despite his efforts to keep their bond strong. It was clear he hadn't done enough. She had moved on without telling him. He wasn't someone who got upset easily, but this news hurt more than he thought it would. They hadn't been together long enough for deep feelings to grow, yet he felt let down by her lack of thought for his feelings. He understood he couldn't compete with someone from her school. He didn't have the same connections, and more importantly, he couldn't be around as much. While waiting for the bus home, he thought about this painful lesson and began to heal. He realized it was better to remove negativity from his life early rather than let it linger. He had learned to hold back from getting too involved. He could move on, knowing he had treated her kindly, accepting that she had chosen a new direction without telling him. When he got home, he talked to friends about their breakup when her name came up. When they asked about his weekend plans, he was honest about the split. Although it was hard to say at first, it quickly became easier. He was ready for new experiences and felt free to move on. His friends had heard about the dates he took Alice on and noticed that she was fun, creative, and had a good sense of humor. They thought he had found someone special. Alice tried to call him a few times, but he didn't answer. He didn't see a reason to. She hadn't bothered to tell him she had someone else. Why should he let her know he had moved on? He wondered if she wanted to keep in touch while enjoying time with someone new. Either way, he wasn't going to stress about it. He had enjoyed his time with her and looked forward to new plans for future relationships. That part of his life was over. After about a month, the calls stopped and she became a memory. A year later, at another wedding, he ran into Alice again. He noticed her as she came in with her family. He had been taking pictures of the church and watching the guests arrive. When Alice walked in with what looked like her family, he sighed. He had a feeling he might see her again at some wedding. His name had started to be recognized, and he was getting work through referrals. This was great for him because it meant he didn't need to advertise, and he was even turning down jobs, which was a nice position to be in. He was busy almost every day during wedding season. By day, he was a photographer for the New York Times, and on weekends, he took photos at weddings. He lived in his own apartment and was working hard to pay off his loan. He had already made good progress and felt proud of it. His boxing was also going well. He was in Division II. His coach thought he could move up to the semi-professional level, but he wasn't sure he wanted that yet. He enjoyed boxing, so he planned to keep practicing as long as it was fun. His love life was a mix of short relationships. He wasn't looking for anything serious. He appreciated the variety that living in a big city like New York brought him. When he saw Alice again, he felt a quick wave of frustration. She was with a family group, and there was a man with her, clearly her date. It wasn't the same guy he had seen her with at college. This was someone new. She looked nice in a blue dress that suited her. He didn't take their picture then. He lowered his camera and moved his gaze to other guests coming through the churchyard. He lifted his camera and stepped away to avoid talking to them. He noticed Alice frown slightly when she spotted him. He focused on his job and pretended not to see them as they sat in the church. He was able to include her family in a photo at the end of the wedding when everyone was posing. They were part of a group of friends who lined up for their photograph. After their turn, they moved off to let the next group come forward. It was a long day filled with work. After the wedding ceremony, he would go to the reception and take photos of the guests arriving, the greetings, the speeches, the cake cutting, and all the fun that followed. It would be late by the time he finished, and he worried about running into Alice during that time. It wouldn't be hard for her to find him. At the reception, while he was busy taking photos of guests in line to greet the couple, he spotted Alice again. This time, her mother stepped out of the line to talk to him. "Good afternoon, Sal. It's nice to see you again. I hope you and your family are doing well." "Good afternoon, Mrs. Tyler. I apologize for not saying hello earlier. I should have brought flowers for you." She laughed lightly. "You're the only one of Alice's friends who thought to do that. I miss it. I suggest you do it for the parents of other young women you date. It leaves a good impression." "Thank you, ma'am. I enjoyed visiting your house," he replied. At that moment, Alice came over to join them, and her mother noticed her and made her excuses. "Hi, Sal. Hey, how are you? Wow, you look great. That dress really shows off your eyes." "Thanks." She looked down for a moment, feeling shy. "I'm sorry, I didn't notice it before, but I was talking to Mel, and she mentioned your name. That made me realize something I had missed." Sal shrugged. "We were young. It was tough then, not just because of what happened, but also because it felt like you didn't care enough to talk to me about it." "I'm really sorry. I liked you a lot, I still do. You're different from others I know." She pointed lightly to her date, who was chatting with her father. "You gave me great memories. You always treated me kindly. My mom really liked you. I know I don't fit into your world." "Sal, that sounds a bit snobbish." He shrugged again. "But it's true. I knew we wouldn't last. I was fooling myself. I was in over my head, and sooner or later it would become obvious. The way things ended was hard, but it was clear from the start." "Why? Just because girls like me don't date boys like you?" "Exactly. Our lives, dreams, and backgrounds are just too different. I feel like you're out of my reach. I was lucky to have a little time with you, but it ended before I got too attached." Alice shook her head at his words. "You're not being fair to yourself or to me. I wasn't with you because I felt sorry for you. I truly enjoyed spending time with you, those people over there." She pointed at her date, who waved back at her. "I go out with them once or twice. They have big plans, good grades, and promising futures, but they don't feel real. I loved the authenticity you brought into my life. I cherished our simple trips to the beach and the fun fair, not the fancy things, but the way you made me laugh and feel special. I'm sorry, I was too young to know how to treat someone like you. I liked you, but I saw you as someone I could turn to in tough times. I regret that. It reflects more on me than you." Sal listened quietly, recognizing the honesty in her words. "Look, I need to move on. I appreciate you coming by and saying this." "Sal, I'm really sorry. You're a good person." She gave him a gentle kiss on the cheek and returned to her table. Sal shook his head to clear his mind and went back to his work. Later, as her family was leaving, she came over again, whispering a soft, "I'm sorry," in his ear. Time went on. He saw her at another wedding, or maybe two that summer. They talked and laughed, and she stopped apologizing. He found himself admiring her once more, seeing the person he had once liked, the woman beyond old misunderstandings. Each time she had someone different with her. He thought about asking her out, but decided against it, feeling it might not be smart. She was still in college, and he knew their lives were going in different directions. A year went by, and wedding season came back around. He raised his prices, having gained enough recognition for his work at the Times to earn a good income. Although wedding photography wasn't his favorite, it helped him pay for his apartment, and life was good. His family was doing well, his parents were healthy, and his sisters were starting their own households. He often remembered her, thinking of her more as someone he missed instead of someone tied to his past. He waited longer than he expected to see her that year. When he finally went to a wedding where she was a guest, she spotted him as if she had been waiting for him. "I was wondering how many weddings I'd have to go to before I finally saw you." He smiled back, noticing how much she had changed. Over the years, her youthful charm had blossomed into true beauty. Dressed elegantly and radiating confidence, she seemed to reflect the grace of her upbringing. "This is my 12th wedding this season. I'm having a quieter week, but I hoped I would see you." "Quieter?" she asked with a raised eyebrow. "Yes, quieter. The last couple I shot had double the budget of this one." She looked impressed. He nodded. One of them required me to bring extra equipment. She looked confused. I brought backdrops for people to take fun pictures in front of. I had a gangster theme and a cowboy setup. It keeps guests entertained. He chuckled. Mostly the kids enjoy it, but some adults join in too, and it makes extra money. She seemed surprised. I can add a few extra dollars to my bill for that. I wouldn't know how much you get for a wedding, he said as he watched her reaction. Didn't expect that? Remember, for that fee, you're getting my time and skills. Plus, I develop the photos and work with the couple to create their albums and any special requests. Your hourly rate is quite impressive, she replied. Sal smiled at her. I've been doing this for about 8 years now. I'm a certified photographer with the New York Times, and I've won some awards. All that helps me raise my prices. And people really pay that? Wow, maybe I'm in the wrong job, she said. Sal laughed. These are my weekends, remember? I'm using my free time to earn this money. I remember when we dated, you were really busy. Still busy. I've almost paid off my mortgage. I earn as much in a year from gigs like this as I do at my regular job. Still boxing. I'm in Division 1 now. That's great. But it's not really your thing, right? She shook her head. Watching two people fight while others cheer? Not for me. Call me what you want, but I don't enjoy that. That's too bad. A tired but happy me is quite a sight. Many women like it. Just keep smiling. If we were together, I wouldn't want to see you get hurt. Thanks, that's really nice of you to say. Their talk carried on, and she spent more time with him than with her date. Sal found he liked her company and felt tempted to ask her out. He hesitated, knowing his girlfriend might not like the idea, and also that Alice would soon go back to college. While they could enjoy their time together now, it would be harder when she moved away. He was careful in his words, making it clear he liked her but wasn't available. He saw a mix of amusement and disappointment in her eyes when she said, "You know, I still wish I had kept you around." Hearing her say, "I have a feeling you'd be someone very special for me," made him smile. The flight attendant broke into his thoughts, offering drinks and snacks. He politely declined and pulled out his laptop. He had a story to finish. He had talked with Snoopy, who helped him improve his work. Feeling satisfied, he emailed it to Mick for editing and publication. Next, he reviewed his banking. They had a shared account for bills, but each had their own private accounts, too. Sal changed his passwords and took careful notes of his account details. He saved all the information in a file. He had a meeting with the divorce lawyer the next morning and wanted everything ready. She had sent him a list of questions, which he answered and emailed back. It took some time, but he hoped being prepared would help make the meeting smooth. He wanted it to be quick and effective, not drawn out over weeks. He felt ahead of Alice. He knew their marriage was over and wanted to get as much done as possible before she returned from her trip. He aimed to finish everything swiftly and easily. He realized she would probably want to discuss things and try to convince him to stay together. He was determined not to let that happen. Her choices had hurt him deeply, but it was time to heal. He didn't want to hear her excuses. They didn't matter to him. They had both promised to be loyal to each other, and she had broken that promise. He acknowledged he had his flaws, working long hours away from home for part of the week. However, she had accepted that when they married, and nothing had changed since then. She had never shown any unhappiness during their time together. He had always been faithful. Sometimes other women showed interest, hinting at something more, but he always said no. He made sure to act in a way that wouldn't confuse or trouble their marriage, staying true to their promises. He valued their relationship a lot. He tried to connect with her parents, surprise her, and be romantic when he could. Even on quiet nights at home, he made important memories together. She never came to him unhappy or asking for change. As for their close moments, they were generally okay. He had no complaints. It wasn't very exciting, but after 10 years of marriage, they had moments together once or twice a week. It often happened in a familiar way. They enjoyed each other's presence. She never said she wanted anything different. Even when she suggested trying something new in their relationship, he was open to it. Her approach had been kind, especially during their time together. He noticed she had made an extra effort lately. He could think about why she made certain choices. He could try to find answers or even consider counseling to help her understand. But did it really matter? Would it change how he felt? He didn't think so. It was already in the past. Once she chose to be with someone else, the vows they had taken felt broken, making her reasons seem less important. He was glad he realized what was happening before they had children. That would have made everything more complicated. His relationship with her family was strained enough without kids adding to it. As the plane landed, he had just finished the paperwork for his lawyer. Shaking his head as he got off, he thought about how just over a week ago he looked forward to a fun trip with his wife, a last getaway before starting a family. Now, he hoped for a simple divorce. What a week it had been. He heard knocking at the door and called out to Alexa to stop the music. When he saw the front door open and someone walking in, he knew he didn't want this meeting. He preferred a quick goodbye, no explanations, no apologies, just a clean break. "I'm in here," he said. When they entered the room, he smiled and put down his stack of books. He approached his mother-in-law first and hugged her warmly, then did the same with his father-in-law. Their puzzled looks showed they were looking for their daughter. "I'll make coffee," he said as he headed to the kitchen. The kitchen was the heart of their home, where they spent a lot of time together. His in-laws settled down at the table while he got ready to make coffee for everyone. Having been married to Alice for a long time, he knew exactly how her parents liked their coffee. "You're back early," his mother-in-law said. He nodded as he took cups out of the cupboard. He had brought some milk, knowing he might enjoy a cup or two while working and would see them too. "Has Ali come back with you?" He shook his head in response to his father-in-law's question and faced them directly. "No, I'm sorry, Gerald. She didn't come back with me." "Is everything okay, Sal?" "No, sorry, Laura, it's not." "Are they both all right? They're not in any trouble?" "I'm sorry. I should have made that clearer. I didn't want to worry you. They're all fine physically, as far as I know." "So why are you here and they are there? Did work call you back early?" As the coffee machine heated up, Sal took a seat at the table. He felt the weight of the last few days pressing down on him. "I'm leaving Alice. I'll be getting a divorce as soon as I can make it happen. I'm really sorry, everyone. Our marriage is over." The heaviness of his words landed heavily, and he felt the reality of it all. He couldn't bring himself to look at them. Instead, he stared at his hands resting on the table. He felt Laura's gentle hand on his, trying to comfort him. He blinked back tears. "I'll, make the coffee," Gerald offered. It took Gerald a few minutes to prepare the drinks and return to the table. He was familiar with everything in the kitchen. This wasn't his first time making coffee there. He could see the worry on Sal's face. Laura stayed close, offering her support as Sal struggled. Gerald gave Sal a pat on the back as he settled back into his chair. Sal wiped his tears with his sleeve and looked up at them one at a time. "I'm sorry. I truly am." Laura stood and came around the table. Sal got up and they shared a short, comforting hug. He sat back down as she let go. "I'm sorry, Laura. Thank you for that." "I'm sorry, too. Can you share what happened?" Sal took a sip of his hot coffee, wincing at how hot it was. "The trip was a failure for me. It was tough and really unpleasant. I found out she wasn't being faithful." "We're finished. Does she know how you feel?" Sal shrugged. "Last time I saw her, she seemed to have other things on her mind." "You've been together for 10 years, Sal. Have you talked to her? I remember how things were before. What's the point of doing that again, Gerald? What would she say that I would want to hear? I'd rather take my things and leave, never to see her again." "That may not be the right choice. I don't know what all happened." Sal noticed something in Gerald's expression, a quick moment of uncertainty. The journalist in him noticed something was off. "What do you know, Gerald?" "What?" "I can see you know something. What is it?" He looked at Laura, who seemed surprised. "Laura?" Everyone fell quiet. He could tell they were hiding something. He slammed his hand on the table. "Tell me! I've known you both for years. Please tell me what you know." Laura spoke first. "Sal, she's ending things." "You knew this whole time and didn't tell me?" "Sal, we found out around Christmas." "Around Christmas?" Sal couldn't believe it. "That was 6 months ago. You didn't say a word." "We didn't want to hurt you. We thought you two should be together. You're a great couple." Sal stood up and walked to the sink, pouring his drink down the drain. "I thought you were like family to me. Were you laughing at me behind my back? You both need to go now." He picked up their coffees and dumped them down the sink. "Sal, I was drinking that." "No, our time together is done, just like my marriage. I can't believe this. Secrets everywhere." He shook his head. Get up and leave my home or I'll show you out. Now! His voice was firm, and he could see it affected them. I'll take my things, then you can both leave. But don't come near me again. Ever. He walked them to the door, nudging Gerald along. He opened the door for them. He saw how upset they were. Neither spoke, and he noticed tears in Laura's eyes. Gerald looked very upset, too. You knew for 6 months that she was unfaithful. Did I mean so little to you? Sal paused, taking a deep breath to calm down. Thank you for the kindness you showed me. I thought of you as family. Thank you for welcoming me. I wish things had been different. Good luck with everything. His voice was stiff. He didn't want to lower himself to their level. He had been raised to hold himself to higher standards. He closed the door and locked it behind them. Now, he felt guilty about how his breakup would affect his in-laws. He always got along with them and knew they would be sad not only about the end of the marriage, but also because they would miss him. But soon, anger began to rise. He imagined them in the kitchen, laughing and sharing stories, knowing all along what was happening to him. Donald moved in circles that they probably knew well, perhaps from Sarah's time. They must have felt relieved when he chose Alice. He shook his head to push those thoughts away. He needed to stop thinking about it. It wouldn't help him. Instead, he focused on the tasks for today, aiming to finish them quickly and well. Then he could plan for tomorrow and the days to come, letting the hurt start to fade. Right now, he needed to clear the house. He took only what belonged to him, avoiding anything that might cause trouble. He packed away Alice's things, which filled just one box. She had hardly spent time there, choosing the calm of the suburbs over the busy city life that he enjoyed. He collected all her items, marked with her name, and set the box in the living room. Room by room, he gathered his belongings, taking care to ensure nothing important was forgotten. He packed carefully and thoughtfully, trying not to make a mess. The wedding album stayed untouched, and he just took down the wedding photos displayed in the house. In the living room, there was a large photo from their first dance at the wedding. The stairs had a series of photos from their special day. He removed the photo over the fireplace and replaced it with a different picture without any personal meanings. The pictures along the stairs were swapped for smaller ones, each showing happier moments from their life together, now free of any sad memories. He was not looking for revenge, but he wanted her to understand that he was aware of her choices and how they affected him. Changing the photos felt like the right way to share his feelings. It took a few trips to his car to bring the different boxes and tools he wanted to keep. Finally, he was finished. He left his wedding ring on the kitchen table and dropped his key through the letterbox after locking his front door one last time. She could have Donald move in now. Upon returning from his trip, he could settle right in. The divorce should be simple. In their state, the rules seemed fair. They didn't have children and had a prenuptial agreement, suggested by her parents, stating that their belongings would be divided based on what they had before the marriage, sharing their resources equally. Sal thought he wouldn't lose any money. He wouldn't gain much, but at least he wouldn't lose anything. That was enough for him. Now he could move forward with his life. I'm sorry, Sal. I thought you had it. You deserved it. Sal picked her up and gave her a big hug. He was a bit tipsy, and Snoopy could smell the hint of alcohol on his breath. Almost, Snoops. So close. It would have been karma or something. Dude, it was a long shot. But you came closer than I ever expected. Even to get here. Remember, I've been writing for nearly 20 years, and I've not had much success. Sal set her down, and they both sat at the table, ignoring the sounds around them. I know. Snoops, I'm so thankful to be here. To be here with you and these friends. He waved his hand around the room. It's great. I feel lucky. I just wish. Let me ask you, as your friend and someone who cares about you, if you could go back and none of this happened, would you? To where? Back to before Donald came into the picture? Honestly, no. I wouldn't go back. Not for a moment. Why? Because she made a choice. Something wasn't right between us. I don't know if it was her, if it was me, or if it was just the relationship itself. But she decided that. Donald was part of it, but I believe it would have just happened with someone else eventually. He shrugged. This year has been hard. Really hard. And yes, I cared for her. I still have feelings for her, but I'm glad she's out of my life. No more chances? Our marriage was a second chance. Whenever he saw any sign of her or their mutual friends, he would stay with one of his sisters. They offered him support and made sure he had a place to stay until things got better. Alice tried to write him a letter, giving it to his lawyer, but the lawyer quickly returned it. My client told me not to pass on any messages from your client to him. If I did, it would go against his wishes, and he made it clear that he would let me go if I broke this rule, so I won't send this to him. Alice wanted the judge to order counseling, but Sal's lawyer explained why they had separated and said that Sal wouldn't join any counseling. After thinking about everything, the judge decided against it. It would be pointless and even disrespectful to the husband who had been hurt. When Lucien grabbed his arm, it was the first time something from his old life had come back to him. If I see you with someone else, I'm out. I'll leave and never return, he said without emotion. She looked at him closely. I understand. I'm here for myself, not representing anyone else. Sal nodded. All right. Have you eaten? She shook her head. No. I didn't know when you'd be done or if I would see you. I didn't want to miss you. How about Italian food? She nodded. Real Italian? Sal chuckled. I promise it's good, and it tastes like what my mom used to make. It's just a short subway ride, so let's go. We can talk on the way. If it's that good, do you think we can get a table? She asked. We'll get a table, just trust me. They found a table by the window with Sal sitting where he could see everyone coming in and out. It was his favorite spot. What's good here? Lucien asked as the waiter gave her a menu. Everything's good, all freshly made. What are you ordering? I'll start with bruschetta and then chicken parmigiana for my main course. I won't have dessert, but I'd like to get a bottle of Malbec for us and a coffee while you have dessert, if you're still here for that. I'll have the same, it sounds great. But I'll want to see the dessert menu because I plan to treat myself. The music in the restaurant was soft enough for them to talk easily, but loud enough to cover any quiet moments. The place was filling up with people coming home from work and eating out. There would be another wave of diners later for those with families or on dates. This was the earlier crowd. So, how have you been? Sal asked. Lucien raised her left hand, showing that there was no wedding ring. I've lost some weight, about 15 stones. And you look great. You must have filed for divorce soon after the vacation ended. Lucien nodded and enjoyed a sip of her wine, smiling at the taste. Yep, we came back, and it was a bit chaotic, as you might expect. After you left, there was a lot of upset because of your absence and Alice's emotional breakdown. I thought I left quietly. That's amusing. I thought you would say goodbye. Didn't you mention a photo? I remember it. It's done, framed, and on a shelf in my apartment. I will miss it when it's gone. No rush. Just wanted to make sure you didn't forget. Why didn't you say goodbye? I thought I deserved that. I did think about it. But honestly, I wanted to leave as quickly as possible. I needed to get out of that situation and return to normal life soon. I had a lot to deal with and didn't want any delays. I can see your point. I spent my day searching for you, worried I might have upset you somehow. I don't think I did anything wrong. After I left, I gathered the information I needed. Once I had it, I felt ready to move on. I wasn't looking for any trouble. But just leaving without telling anyone? Sal smiled. It's called a French exit. Lucien shook her head, her curls bouncing. I've never heard of that. Interestingly, the British call it a French exit, the French call it an English exit, and the Irish claim it as theirs. The idea is simple. You leave without making a big deal. I like how straightforward it is. Have you talked to her? Sal shook his head. No, I don't intend to. Why should I? I made it clear there would be no discussion. She hoped we could talk, but I was clear. She didn't want to accept what I said. That sounds hard. It is. I didn't want any of this. I didn't wish to leave and feel ashamed. She made her choices, and I won't support those anymore. There's nothing I want to hear from her. When she came back, she wanted to know where you were immediately. She seemed really worried. Not worried enough to act responsibly. True. Lucien nodded slowly. I saw the pictures you took. She looked like she was having a good time. Sal shrugged. She made her choices, and that ended our marriage. No second chances. Our marriage was already a second chance. I won't go through that again. Well, she searched everywhere for you, asking the staff all the time. They couldn't believe you left without anyone noticing. In the end, they checked the CCTV and saw you leaving with your things. When she found out you were gone, things got out of hand very quickly. We were all there with her." She paused for a moment. "I truly think she reached her limit. She understood that with you gone, the marriage was over. It seemed like she didn't see that coming. When she faced the truth, it was hard for her to cope. She needed support to calm down." "She didn't go home early?" "No, changing the flights wasn't an option. We had to stay with her in that state. It wasn't easy, I promise you. By the end, we all felt pretty worn out. The waiter brought their appetizers, and after thanking him, Sal and Lucienne started to enjoy their food." "This is nice, Sal. You really know how to treat a girl to a good meal," Lucienne said. "I told you it would be good. Just wait until you try the Parmigiana. It's something special," Sal replied. "Congratulations on your article, by the way. That was a really nice surprise," she added. A smile appeared on Sal's face. "I wrote the article, but then the editors decided to make it a big feature. I love my job and my paper, but it felt great to have their support on that." "Well, when we got to the airport, Donald and Ruben grabbed the free copies they hand out. I thought they might faint when they saw the paper running your story," Lucienne said. "That's good to hear," Sal said. Lucienne laughed. "I couldn't help but smile when I saw the headline. We all stood still, completely focused on reading it. It was so quiet you could hear a pin drop." "I thought it was well written," Sal said. "Oh, it really was. Seeing your name and face as the writer on the front page, what a win. You might even get a nomination," she replied. Sal looked down for a moment. "And for my first story, too. I just hope so. It would be wonderful. My friend hasn't received one yet, so it really keeps me going." "I'll be cheering for you. They noticed how well you expressed your feelings in the story. It was truly impressive," Lucienne said. "Thanks. We in the press aim to create stories that matter," Sal replied. "That story definitely made waves. No doubt about it, there was a buzz on TV and social media. The resort is now under new management and is changing its approach," Lucienne said. "I know. I've been keeping track of it," Sal said. "Are you still writing?" "Yeah. I focus on photography first, but I also write. I'm on the journalist list, so I get to share my stories. I'm not sure if I want to write full-time yet. I really love photography. Writing is fun, but it doesn't inspire me like photography does. And you? You mentioned feeling lighter. What's changed for you?" "I decided to end my marriage with Donald while we were away. Your thoughts about our relationship made me think. I realized I was becoming someone I didn't want to be. I want a relationship where I feel valued, and I believe I deserve that." She paused, thinking for a moment. "I've been looking closely at our relationship for some time and realizing I'd come to the wrong conclusions. I didn't want to feel like my younger self would be ashamed of who I've become. In the end, for my own self-respect, I knew the marriage had to end. That's part of why I wanted to talk to you, to share my decision." "I'm glad you found that clarity. I think you're making the right choice," Sal said. "Whoever you end up with is going to be a lucky guy. You have looks, a great personality, intelligence, and charm. You're a catch for anyone. You just need to find someone who appreciates you." She nodded. "It's easy to say that. It's scary to think about being alone again. Sometimes it feels exciting, but it's also a bit overwhelming. My friends who are married have kind of drifted away from me and Donald. I guess we seem different now and maybe not the best for them." She chuckled lightly. "I can't really blame them. Not completely, anyway. Just give them some time. If they're true friends, they'll come back around." "I'm not sure, honey. A lot of friendships depend on being close and having shared experiences. I'm in a different spot now, very different. Then find better friends, ones who will support you and truly care about you." "What about you, Sal?" "I had two lives during my marriage. There was my life in the suburbs with Alice and my life in the city. My city life hasn't changed. My friends here are still my friends. They weren't really Alice's friends. They've stayed with me, and I have a great support system. My team at work has been amazing. I couldn't ask for a better group there." He paused for a moment to enjoy his meal. "I cared about her. I still do, I guess. There are tough nights when I wonder what went wrong and what I could have done differently. Sometimes I feel bad about it, but I try to recognize those feelings. Usually that helps me move on." "You've moved on better than she has. She's looking for help now. It seems like it's been hard for her. She went back to her parents when she realized you were done. But I think she's really struggling." "Do you see her?" "I've seen her a couple of times. That's how I know she's having a tough time. She doesn't look like herself anymore. She's lost weight and seems weighed down by something. It's clear she's not in a good place. I know she was with my husband, but I always thought she was nice. I understand why Donald was drawn to her. There was something special about her. Hopefully she'll get through this and come out okay. If she's getting help, maybe they can help her work through her problems so she can find a way to move forward. So you and Donald settled everything? Yep. The divorce is final. I'm on my own now. I don't know. We don't talk anymore since I told him we were done. Did you tell him while you were on holiday? She shook her head as the waiter took away their plates. No, I followed your example. I got everything ready while he was busy with his current project. He was too focused on that to notice what I was doing. He thought I was still the same obedient person. He didn't see how I truly felt. So I got a lawyer, followed her advice, and surprised him with my decision. Good for you. How did he take it? About as well as expected. He asked why I was making this choice and promised to change. But I had seen the truth. I understood how he treated our relationship and how untruthful he had been. He didn't want a real partnership. He just wanted me at home while he looked elsewhere. He even asked if I was involved with you. He knew we connected during our trip. That's a common worry for someone who is unfaithful. They cheat and think everyone else does too. I think he saw that what I wanted, you represented. A stable life, a true partner, and a family. Still, he was more focused on his work and our problems. He put his job before you? To be fair, he was dealing with a huge development project. It was a big responsibility, and he didn't want it to fail. When the article came out, it hit him hard. My choice to end our marriage was a painful distraction for him, but that project had all his attention. Some investors have principles. Yes, his did. I don't think he understood that. He seemed to believe the investors wouldn't walk away and that the deal was all that mattered. I can't be sure if he fully understood what would happen when everything fell apart. But for them, it wasn't only about the money. The deal looked good, but when they learned about his honesty, their interest faded. Oh? My opinion is that those investors thought, if he could betray someone and let a marriage fail, could he really be trusted with a big risk? That's what I believe. In the end, they pulled out, the deal fell through, and Donald faced serious trouble. Are you doing okay? Financially? Yes, a lot of things were in my name. He was so focused on trying to fix his project while we were figuring out the finances, which helped me. My lawyer was great, thankfully. I'm fine. I still need to work, but I can pick jobs rather than rush into anything. That's good to hear. I was worried you'd be in a tough spot, too. No, I'm all right. Sal, I've got no complaints. I should have ended things with Donald as soon as I noticed his dishonesty. I didn't. I looked past it and forgave him, however you want to say it. He pushed limits, and accepting it became normal because once a line is crossed, where do you draw another? They sat quietly, watching people on the sidewalk. Our talk made me stop and think. I realized I had lost sight of what really mattered. I let you and Alice down. If I had been brave enough to say no at the start and ended that relationship, maybe he would have learned. Maybe things would have changed. I saw the effects of my choices when you mentioned Alice and you. I'm glad. I know it sounds selfish, but I am. I never liked him. I didn't like him before he caused problems in my life, and I'm relieved you're away from him. I hope he understands what he has lost with you. Lucienne offered him a shy smile. Sweetheart, I don't know if he ever will. He doesn't think that way. I believe the struggles he's faced will be hard for him. People come and go. True, but he will eventually see what he had and what he lost. It may not hit him right away, but no one is so tough that they don't notice when something important is gone. Well, he's out of my life now. I took your advice and ended it without giving him a chance to talk me out of it. For any meetings, I made sure I had support with me, my lawyer or a trusted friend. Smart choice. Anyway, he still has Sarah, Ruben, and Alice. No, not Alice. She blamed him for my leaving. From what I gather, they convinced her that she could have both, me on the weekends and him when I was not around. She managed that for a while. I don't know. I know she was heartbroken when she found out I was gone. There was no reasoning with her. I don't understand how she thought things could work that way. I guess she believed she could get away with it. She's out of your life now. Yep. What's that saying? The best revenge is a life well lived? Well, you're doing just that. She's moved back in with her parents and sold your old house. Sal paused for a moment as he watched the waiter bring their food and set it in front of them. He looked at the steam rising from the plate. Sometimes I think being a food photographer would be an easier job, with better meals than what I do now. He took a careful bite of the hot meal, blowing on it first. Living back with her parents might be a good idea. It could be the best choice for her, especially if you're right that she's seeing a counselor. Hopefully, some time to reflect and a safe space will help her look at herself and make some changes. You still care? Of course, I loved her. I wasn't playing games. I really loved her and was fully committed to the marriage. I wanted kids, the nice home, and to grow old with her. It's over. I know it's really over. I'm okay with my decisions and what I've done, but I still care about her. The feelings are changing, fading, but they aren't completely gone. It's a part of me, my identity. Have you started going out with anyone? Sal shook his head. No, I'm not sure I'm ready yet. It's only been a year since everything happened. Dating? Nope. I really like women, but I don't want just any kind of relationship. I know it may sound silly, but I want something meaningful. Sweetie. He glanced at her as she took a sip of her drink, causing her to cough a little. He smiled at her. That's what I want, what I'm looking for. He shook his head firmly. I don't think so. I don't believe it would be wise. Wisdom. That's not really a word you hear when talking about this kind of thing. He chuckled. I like you. I think you're great. I really do. But there are important reasons why getting involved wouldn't be a good idea. He noticed her taking a deep breath. Okay, tell me. Donald. I've left him. We're not together anymore. He's a good-looking guy, strong, remember? Charismatic. He knows you well and remembers what you like. You have good memories from the past. He's in my past, not my future. Just like you wouldn't go back to Alice, I won't go back to him, not for anything. He's not what I want. He doesn't keep us together. I'm not ready. How can I help you feel ready? Sal smiled at her. Sometimes it's hard for me to see you seriously, you know? I'm divorced, Sal. I'm free. From the moment we met, I felt a connection. I don't need more time to know I have real feelings for you. Sal looked a bit worried. Feelings are a big deal. There's a lot you don't know about me. I understand. I see you're not in a place where you're ready. I respect that, and I admire that you want to take time to think things through before getting into something new. I like that about you. I don't think you'd choose me. Lucien shrugged. You know we get along. We can communicate well. I care about you, and I know you have feelings for me too. We share a lot of the same ideas. We both want a family, a relationship we can grow old in. She took a moment to eat some food. I've moved to the city. I like it here. I don't know my way around yet. I don't have friends or know anyone outside of work, but I enjoy the energy of this place. There's always something new to discover, a different story waiting. This is my world. I felt more at home and connected here than anywhere else, even back with my family. That was a big move for you. I'm taking chances. I've played it safe for far too long. I let Donald hold me back until I turned into someone I didn't recognize. Now I want the opposite. I want to live my life fully. What's that saying? Go big or go home? Sal smiled and nodded. I made a brave decision and left Donald. I feel like myself again. I'm not completely fixed. I have some things I carry with me, but I feel better about who I am than I have in a long time. I took a leap and moved to this city. I knew I wanted to explore here, so I trusted my feelings in this place. So far, I love it. I love learning about it, connecting with the community, and I've just started. Sal quietly enjoyed his meal while I spoke. He could see my excitement, and I felt different from the woman he met on vacation. I was more sure of myself, and he enjoyed listening to me. Now I'm being bold with you. I know saying I love you makes you nervous. Honestly, it makes me a bit nervous to say it too, but it's how I feel, and I trust that feeling. If you're not ready, I'll wait. If you can't love me, let's just be friends. Show me around the city you love. Sal chuckled. My energy was growing, and I think others in the restaurant could hear me too. When I finished, there was a round of applause, and he leaned back, laughing with real joy. I don't know if I can take the same risks you have. I'm not ready to say I love you. I want to mean it when I say it. I believe in being honest. I make small commitments first, then decide if I want to take bigger steps. So take a chance on me. I'm worth it. Just then, a waitress came over to our table. Hey, how's the food? Sal nodded with a big smile. It's still good. The waitress looked at me with curiosity. Do you like the food too? She asked, smiling. I laughed. It's good. Sal said it was good and it hasn't let me down. Thanks for that. Sal and I both laughed. I didn't mean to get loud. Please, I love seeing my brother a bit flustered by a wonderful woman who's sharing her feelings. I'll tell the family about this. Sal groaned. Really, Maria? My silence can be traded. A week of doing dishes and I won't tell anyone. Maria, this is Lucienne. Lucienne, this is my big sister Maria. She welcomed me warmly. Oh, you just moved to the city. It's great to meet you. Welcome to New York. I'm sure I'll see you again. She walked away, and I noticed tears in my eyes as I looked at Sal. Small bets can be helpful. When they work out, I feel brave enough to try bigger ones. So, are you still friends with her? Snoopy asked, pulling Sal back to the moment. Yeah, we're fine. Things are going well. The end. Hey listeners, if you enjoyed watching this video and want to stay updated with our latest content, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. You won't want to miss out on what's coming next. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next video with Queen Cheating Tales.